Good evening. Welcome to Tux TV for this fine day, February 7th, 2023. I'm coming to you for a little bit of a critique of team apologetics around Dr. Falk. I wanted to throw my little opinion in the ring and see if it sloshes around enough to make a splash. I want to thank Nitty for letting me on and having a little conversation about 20 minutes ago, and hope you enjoy the show. Hopefully, it's only about 15-ish, 20-ish minutes. I want to start with a little quick summary. Dr. Falk is a guy who is on an apologetic and who is a research assistant at West Coast Canadian higher learning in higher learning, and he had done a Q&A, and off the cuff he basically had was chastising the media for hiring somebody that was a professor, and that it's like a cross between don't take this person serious because they're attractive, except he's not saying that. He's actually critiquing the media companies for their hiring practices of people who don't generate the substance for the common apologetic type of person like Dr. Falk is, and instead have pursued attractiveness, and makes a reference to in the Q&A about cup size. And but before that, he's focused on specifically that this isn't a very good scholar. They just don't believe the things that a common apologetic type finds themselves having to defend. Instead, I believe that the professors out there in the world, they make their living by looking at a body of evidence and saying, this is what we have, and this is in a pile that needs to be reconciled. This is in a pile we're pretty confident that historically happened, and this is a good narrative to a story. And they decipher it a little different than this happened, Jesus is real, and we don't have to say anything else. I mean, Jesus is real. Everybody knows that. So the common attack from a pulpit is a very common theme. Now, I'm going to skip to the end here real quick, and I want to show this apology. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it. But where Dr. Falk has an issue is he issues this apology, and first of all, he doesn't actually apologize. He only admits that his comment is rude and inflammatory, and he's really only apologizing to those that are offended. So I apologize to those whom I offended, I quote. The comment was never meant to imply that women are less capable as scholars or public intellects. Quite the opposite. It was about media outlets and sometimes women themselves, using sexuality to promote and amplify a message to the general public. Now, I think this is where the rails goes off. Doing something in a Q&A that is off the cuff is, in my opinion, it's not that big of a deal. He shouldn't have said it. He shouldn't have implied that, her ample bosoms of motherhood are in any aspect to her intellect. However, in this apology, he basically goes and points the finger again at the media, but then points out that women are using media to advance their sexuality and promote and amplify a message to the general public. Like, what does that even mean? And what does it have to do with your apologetics? So there's the problem. This is where Team Jesus, I believe, has to step in. So the common trope I always grew up with, and I've heard it 1,000 times, well, that's just what liberal scholars believe. They just do that to sleep with co-eds. Now, I've played this clip before, but I was wanting to talk about the passion that you have for Jesus. This is the same clip I've already played, but the reference of adultery is, pretty thick. And I want to replay this clip, but maybe not all of it.
Why is it that people with PhDs in theology commit adultery? They don't know God.
So, the common trope is those liberal scholars, they just want to sleep with the co-eds. They don't actually want to find Jesus. They actually don't want to find God. They're in this camp over there, and they got their s'mores, and they're just going to town on making that sweet, delicious, decadent treat so that they can entice the co-eds, and they can have sex with males and females alike, and they're so smart because they studied 10,000 hours on information that all they had to do was pick up the book that's in front of them and believe. Now, I, for one, believed that at one time. And then I heard people saying it to me after I started to figure out something's a little off here, without having any of the scholarly information. Now we live in a world in which you can get all the scholarly information on the internet. Now, it's a double-edged sword. The Christian could be in the camp that they are accidentally believing the knowledge of good and evil. On the flip side, I could be believing the knowledge of good and evil just by poking around the internet at the theological stuff and not checking it out for myself, trusting that Bart Ehrman is somehow leading me astray. That recently James Tabor is leading me astray. That Dr. Josh Bowen is leading me astray. That Dr. Kip Davis is leading me astray. That Dr. David Litwa is leading me astray. All professors that have demonstrated time and time again that when you look at the Bible and you look at the history of where something came from, they bring the receipts every single time. So when I'm either looking at a body of information and once again deciphering what is potentially fiction, what is potentially fact, and then what's narration of reconciling the two. And that's what I see on the scholars, that obviously Dr. Kip Davis is more than willing to stand up and say, this person is spot on. Dr. Francesca Savacopolo, I hope I pronounced that right. Forgive me if it's not like I ever knocked on somebody's door and said, can Savacopolo come out and play? We want to go ride bikes. So John Piper here is more than willing to throw any scholar, any PhD under the bus just because he thinks they want to learn all this stuff just so they can sleep with co-eds. And that was the common trope from apologists like John Piper, like Dr. Falk. Now, the problem is there's a scholar like Dr. Savacopolo who says the way it is, and she's on BBC, and you have the inability to now say, well, she's just doing it so she can sleep with 10,000 people. She can sleep with all her co-eds. You instead have to attack her cup size and then attack the media for hiring somebody who's attractive. As if it somehow changes the game. It changes the playing field of when and where and how information is delivered. And I want to call out, the reason I showed you all this stuff is to show you this. This is Sentinel Apologetics. Now, the reason I bring him up is he's wrote a little novella, and almost immediately says this person doesn't have the receipts. Okay? So this is where I want to focus on right here. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. Hi, Nitty.
Yo.
I don't hear your audio.
What?
I've had this problem before. Everybody else can hear your audio,
Oh,
and I
okay.
can't.
Yeah, because I'm coming through on Restream, so.
What did I do? Well. You're coming through on Restream? Okay. My audio's okay? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm sure it's something on my end. I don't know what.
All good.
How about now?
I hear you.
Oh, I may have figured it out.
Hey.
It's something with my Mac, the conflict between Restream and my microphone and the virtual cable. It's messed up.
Oh, virtual
I have to
cable.
refresh or reset or something. All right, I'm going to finish this and we'll do an after show,
Sure.
Nitty. How about that? So this is what I want to do. To summarize what's going on in the cyberbullying playground around grown adults, grown in apostrophes, is number one, Dr. Kip Davis has constipated personal beef with all Christians. Okay. I don't know what that has to do with the cyberbullying. I don't know what it has to do with him standing up for, catching basically an apologist being wrong. And apparently, I think Rob is wrong again. You don't need to call names out. If there's cyberbullying going on, these two wrongs don't make a right to say that Dr. Kip Davis has a personal beef with all Christians. What are we, 10?
For real.
And then this is Dr. Dan, I'm not sure. McClellan. He is the person that I actually found out about the apology from and what is wrong with what Dr. Falk said in the first place. He has white knight syndrome, and with anyone against his mentor. I believe the better take it would be, Dr. Falk shouldn't have said what he did, and he shouldn't have apologized with a non-apology that actually deepened the hole.
Yep.
And you know what? There's no such thing as cyberbullying if you do that. You just take the consequences of what was said and let it just leave the world. There's an earthquake that just happened. Everybody's going to be talking about that sooner or later instead.
Yeah.
And then at Myth Vision podcast, it's going to make fun of Derek for some reason. Enjoy stirring the pot. 4 views. Ellipsis, 4 views. And then in parentheses, still love you, Derek. Derek, I still love you too. I mean, in all honesty, your shows the last couple of days with you and Derek, not to confuse Derek with Derek, but Derek with Derek. I had a couple of milk out the nose moments in the last 3 or 4 days with you two sitting side by side with a little jib and jab going.
Good.
So, Rob at Sentinel Apologetics also is going to review Dr. Stravakopoulos' book. That's coming soon. But
Well, you bet your sweet ass that I'll be in that live stream.
I don't know,
chatting.
guys.
So
I have somewhat of a beef with the name calling. When honestly, you should probably just say, let's move forward. And instead of calling people names, I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong, Rob. I think you're better than this. I think Dr. Falk is better than his non-apology. And obviously the consequences are coming to him. But, Team Jesus coming to the rescue looks an awful lot like Team Immature pulling the girl's hair you kind of got a crush on in the 3rd grade with Dr. Kip and Dr. Dan and Derek from Myth Vision. So why don't we all try to get along? I'm more than willing to treat the Christian with as much respect as if I am married to them. 'Cause divorce is ugly. And this looks like you're picking a divorce. Choose marriage. Choose to try to love another. Get along. Work it out. Compromise. Be in the good graces. And that's my advice to you. And writing this novella about, I don't know. Unfortunately, whenever I read stuff like this, I can only read it in Rob's voice. And Rob, you talk so slow, even in my head. You need to pay rent if you're going to be talking that slow in my head like that. It's my 2 cents. All right, guys. I just wanted to get that off my chest. I'm going to do an after show with Nitty, and I'm gonna leave you with. I want to leave you with one little video. There we go.
With Tracy Spicer.
Tonight, there are concerns tonight a whale found floating off Victoria's southeast coast could have died as a result of survey work carried out by an oil company. The whale was discovered by an ESSO seismic survey crew about 26 nautical miles off Lake's entrance in East Gippsland. Sharks have been in a feeding frenzy around the carcass. Local fishermen say they're concerned about the effects underwater geological work could have on marine life. However, ESSO says it hadn't started its survey when the whale was found, and the frequency given out by its equipment wouldn't hurt a whale.
This week, John Clark and Brian Dawes' attention was distracted from the election campaign by a curious story that caught their eye, but just might not have caught yours. A whale was found dead last Saturday off Lake's entrance in Victoria, in an area where a multinational energy company is conducting seismic tests for oil and gas.
Minister, thanks for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me on the program. It's good to be here.
I'd like to ask you about this incident where a whale died this week.
Yes, very sad indeed, yes.
Yeah. What exactly happened?
This is just the one the other day?
Yeah.
In Bass Strait?
Mm-hmm.
Whale that died of old age?
Well, it didn't, did it?
This is the one down at Lake's entrance?
Yeah.
In the area where they do the seismic testing?
Yeah.
Yeah, died of old age.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, you don't so much know it as... It's a question of likelihood. As I understand it, that's the most likely scenario.
Was it an old whale?
Yeah, I believe it was a fairly elderly mammal, yes.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, it'd have to be, wouldn't it? I mean, you're not going to die of old age unless you're getting on a bit, are you? Have a look in the dictionary.
Okay. But does this happen fairly often with whales?
Whales dying of old age?
Yeah.
In the areas where they do the seismic testing?
Yeah.
No, not a lot. And let me say, there was no seismic testing, as I understand it, being done in that area.
And who told you that?
The company who does the seismic testing.
The mining company?
I believe that's what they do, yeah.
Now, what is seismic testing exactly?
Seismic testing is an environmentally friendly and deeply sensitive way of firing an enormous sonic impulse into the ocean floor in order to see if there's anything down there.
And what happens if anything's in the way?
Well, there isn't anything in the way. There's just water down there. I mean, it's fired off a boat. You got the boat sitting on the top, and then below the boat, the blue area, that's just water.
I realise that. But is there anything in the water? I mean, fish and whales and things?
Oh, there are a few critters in there, but there's a fair bit of water between them. I don't know whether you've ever been fishing, for example. You'd be aware of this ratio. There are a fair bit more water than there are critters.
Yeah, exactly. But so there are creatures down there?
Well, no, not if you're going to fire a huge sonic impulse into the ocean floor. They get out of the area pretty briskly once the trouble starts. They're not idiots.
How do they communicate with each other?
Under the water?
Yeah.
Using sound. It's very clever. It's all sort of sonar.
How do they use sonar to communicate if the mining company's firing a sonic boom into the ocean floor?
Yes, that's a very good question. Afraid I don't know the answer. I'm not a botanist.
So this old whale that died, where is he now?
It's not there anymore.
Still in the sea?
Well, nobody knows where it is. It's disappeared, apparently.
And who told you that?
The company who does the seismic testing.
Well, what were they doing out there?
They were just out there making sure that there was no seismic testing being done.
Why?
Just in case anything went wrong.
Like what?
Well, if a whale's going to die of old age, for example, you wouldn't want it to happen during a seismic test.
No. Thanks for your time.
Bugger up your result, wouldn't it?
Sorry?
Sorry. Just clearing the throat.
All right.